We're good to go? Okay, good afternoon. Today, Simon and I are announcing the next step in reforming New Zealand's local government system. Local government in New Zealand is too complex, it's too costly, it's too hard for people to navigate. We've got 78 councils across a country of around 5 million people, and our view is too often that leads to duplication, dysfunction, and decisions that don't make sense. As I think you remember, late last year, many of you were here in this office, we announced our proposals to change and simplify the system. That involved removing elected regional councillors and requiring councils to work together on region-wide plans to cut duplication and improve accountability. We've now completed consultation on that proposal. We had over 1,000 submissions, in fact 1,100 from around the country, many individuals, but councils, iwi, and other people around the country. What we heard was actually quite consistent. There's strong support for change, and many councils actually want more flexibility to get on with that change in a way that works for them. Several mayors have told us, both in writing and personally, that they want to move now. They've got quite clear ideas around what should change, and they want to get on with it. It's been quite interesting over the last few months. The number of people in local government who've said, thank goodness you guys have opened up this debate. You are giving us the space to get on with it. We know things need to change. We know things are broken. Thank you, government, for actually starting the debate properly, and let's crack on with it. And today's announcement will give effect to the wishes of many mayors and many communities to get on with the business of simplifying local government. Councils are going to play a critical role in the new planning system. Those are the replacements to the Resource Management Act that are before the Environment Select Committee right now. The government's intention is to pass those into law before the election. It will be a transformational change for our housing and infrastructure systems and our environmental management systems. A once-in-a-generation opportunity to reset the way we do housing, infrastructure, farming, growing, and indeed many facets of life in the New Zealand economy. We are determined to get it right. We thought very carefully about sequencing, and we thought about delaying local government reform to land resource management reform. But in the end, we have remained firm in our view that both go hand in hand together. Resource management reform simply must go hand in hand with local government reform, and we are therefore proceeding on. Fixing the planning system whilst leaving local government untouched would just lock in many of the same problems that have bedevilled our current system for too long. The reforms go hand in hand. So today we are giving councils a clear choice. Lead your own reform, or we will do it for you. There is a clear carrot, which is a 3-month window for councils to shape their own destiny and the future of their own local governing arrangements. And if that opportunity is not seized and grasped by local government, then the government will act and do it for those communities. I'm now going to hand over to Simon to run you through the details of how Head Start works, and then we'll have to take your questions.
Well, thank you very much, Minister Bishop. Today is a fundamental reform announcement in regards to local government in New Zealand. The Head Start pathway is in effect the green light to councils to pitch for their own reorganisation plans. From today, councils have a 3-month window to work with their neighbours to put forward proposals for how they will want their local government to look and function. This is about giving those councils around the country the steering wheel to design a system that actually works for their communities and their ratepayers. We want to see unitary authorities. We want to see a one-stop shop that are larger, leaner, and more efficient. We're looking to kill the duplication that exists, that slows down the housing and infrastructure needs that this country so badly needs into the future. We're going to be giving councils flexibility to draw their own boundaries. Proposals don't have to cover an entire region, but it must have clear support, it must have strong leadership, and it must have real clear benefits for communities. In terms of the criteria and the process, when these proposals come in, they will be assessed by the new MCERT entity, and officials will assess them against very specific set of criteria, and these will include, first and foremost, feasibility. Is the plan realistic? Can it be delivered on time? We want results, not just reports. Alignment. Does it support our new planning system that Minister Bishop has outlined? We need structure that makes rolling out the new planning rules easier, not harder. Simplicity. Does it reduce duplication? We want clearer, more efficient decision making across local government, and ratepayers want that as well. And we also hear it from the business community who want to see greater simplification within local government to reduce the cost and the transaction cost of dealing with them. Value. Will it improve efficiency? Will it save money over time? And importantly, will it support the infrastructure and services for ratepayers? And lastly, representation. Can it maintain a strong local voice? We must ensure that both urban and rural communities are fairly represented in the model. Cabinet will then decide which proposals will progress later this year, with everything signed off in 2027 and ready to go ahead in front of the 2028 local elections. We know that some areas are already doing the thinking and doing some of this work. We've heard from many councils that they want reform, but they do not want to wait so long for that to be effected, but they also want a seat at the table to be able to shape what that solution looks like. Head Start gives them that seat at the table. It is about the government getting out of the way. If you're ready to move, then you don't have to wait for anyone else. Importantly, you can get on with designing the proposed system that you want to have that serves your communities. But I need to be very clear in regards to this broader proposal. The status quo is no longer a feasible option going forward. For areas that choose not to come forward through the Head Start pathway, the government will implement a backstop process. And this will ensure that reform happens across the entirety of New Zealand. This backstop will apply a standardised approach, including transitional governance arrangements, to ensure that every New Zealander benefits from a more efficient local government system. The door is now open and the ball is now in the courts of councils. We look forward to seeing their plans and looking forward to seeing councils get to the table with central government to make this a reality. With that, Minister Bishop and I will take some questions.
These plans for 11 combined territory schools. So to be clear, is that no longer happening?
That's right. The feedback on the combined territories proposal was frankly, it was mixed. Some people quite into it, other people really not into it. Quite a strong view coming through from some that mayors were busy enough, frankly, running their own councils and didn't really want to be on a combined regional body at the same time. So there were some submissions in support of it, but there was also quite strong views against it. So that was I would describe that as a starter for 10 proposal. You know, we put it out there, and as I said in my opening remarks, what it did was basically give license for people to say, okay, great, we can start talking about simplifying local government now. The government's up for it, we're up for it, and so the proposal that we're putting forward today is essentially a response to that, to say, okay, if you're up for it, here's a window in which the government will give you the ability to shape the destiny of the particular region. We will act to legislate those specific proposals and get on with it. The alternative is that, as has been, there's a couple of alternatives. One is that we just continue to drift, as we have done for the last 20 years, in which everybody says, gee, we should really do something about local government. Nothing happens because the local government commission process is time-consuming, it's extremely cumbersome from a consultation point of view, and that's a reason why basically nothing has happened in local government simplification for 20 or so years, since 89, frankly, since 89, 90. So that's not an option. The other sort of obvious alternative is you do some massive royal commission and you reorganise local government, from the top down. But again, that will take a very long time, be very time consuming, be very expensive, and actually probably likely to lead to many of the same solutions that are going to come forward through the Head Start. So we're just saying to regions that have basically gone away over the last 4 and 5 months, mayors and communities who've said, actually, we're up for this, we're saying, come at us. We will give effect, as long as they're sensible and meet our range of criteria, we will give effect to them.
Which councils have said that they, or signalled that they might amalgamate?
Well, there's a bit of interest from lots of them. I mean, Northland, for example, has established a Northland elected member steering group. They've put a secretariat together. Waikato has been having discussions through the mayoral forum. Bay of Plenty have had similar conversations. Wellington has had a working group through the mayoral forum. Wellington City Council's been driving that a little bit. There's obviously been conversations over in the Wairarapa as well. Then there's an outstanding issue around, where Wairarapa sits compared to Wellington. But that's an ongoing conversation. Hawke's Bay has set up an interim regional office to advance work on a reorganisation plan. So I guess I'd say to you, lots of regions are at different, they've done different things. They're at different stages. Sometimes they're mayoral forums, other times they're more at the officer level. There's a whole range of work underway already out there in the regions and in our cities. And so we'll just have to wait and see what comes forward.
Once this is completed, how many councils would you like to see?
Well, we don't have a specific number in mind. It's really going to be determinant on what proposals we receive. We don't want to get in front of that process. It's important we're creating a framework here, and the pace will be set not by the slowest council, but by the councils that are ready to move first and foremost. Southland's probably a good example that's already within, in effect, the pre-existing process, which, to Minister Bishop's point, has not successfully created an amalgamation in its history because of the bureaucracy of the process. But they're a good example where, in effect, they'll be able to opt into this process and, in effect, execute their target state, in a much more faster manner.
How many unitary authorities?
I really don't want to get ahead of that because we are genuinely going to leave it over to regions and cities and communities to shape their own destiny. And there are some quite tricky issues to work through. Think about the Waikato and the Bay of Plenty, for example. Down south as well. I don't want to get ahead of that. I'm aware of lots of conversations, but the moment I mention, specific examples, I don't. Out of respect for the mayors and respect for those regions, we'll just let them have those conversations. Our role at central government is to facilitate that, and that's what we're doing today. Henry.
Given the complexity that you're acknowledging, and given there is a limited number of local government consultants who can help with this kind of work, why only 3 months? It feels like there's going to be a massive rush on all the resources that can help prepare a proposal of this.
We're not expecting local government to go out and hire hordes of consultants. In fact, I would strongly encourage them to not go out and hire hordes of expensive consultants. Many of these conversations have already been happening. In fact, in some regions and communities, I think about Wellington, my own patch, these conversations have been underway for about a decade. Now, at different intensity, at a different pace, but it's not like the Wellington region, for example, is not unaware of the problems and the sort of benefits and costs of change and things like that. And some of those conversations have picked up in intensity in many regions in the last 4 to 5 months since we announced the local government reform process. So our expectation is for them to get on with it and put forward their proposals. And at some level, we can either just let this conversation as a country drift forever, or we can take decisive action to say, you know what, you all say you're up for it, or many people say they're up for it, great. Here's a 3-month window, we'll make decisions and we'll get on with it.
In regards to your point, one of the key issues around timing is because the elections are in 2028. And when you want to embed and put in place change, then you need to do so with enough clean air. And so, in effect, what we will be doing is allowing to put in place their plans by this year, legislate that next year, and that gives these groupings enough clean air to be able to execute their plan.
The Royal Commission on Auckland took 2 years. obviously that's something probably more complicated than some of the other amalgamations. 3 months to 2 years, is that a bit?
I think you're comparing apples and oranges. Firstly, Auckland is a kind of sui generis case. It is significantly larger and was more complicated. So that's the first difference. And then the second is we're not starting from a standing start. Auckland. I mean, there've been a few conversations in Auckland, but it took a Royal Commission to cut through the noise. But we're not starting from a standing start. There have been conversations happening in many regions, some of which I've just listed. Southland's another example already, and Northland, for example, has already basically formed up a proposal already. So we're not starting from a standing start.
How detailed will these
initial proposals have to be?
Enough detail for the government to endorse them moving into the next stage. So I know that sort of sounds like it's not answering the question, but they've got to meet the 5 criteria that we've outlined, and then we would say, yep, we're prepared to endorse that to go forward. And then if Cabinet makes that decision and we announce that, then the expectation would be that over the balance between into 2027 that they would be fleshed out and worked up in more detail, enough so that we could then legislate them in 2027. And exactly how we do that is a bit of a TBC. So it may be that if we get 5 high quality proposals, we end up with a government bill that reorganises those regions, and we put that into the Parliament in 2027 to take effect for the 2028 local body elections, or it may be we'll just have to wait and see exactly what comes forward.
What if there's a region that wants the proposal to give a bit, maybe a little bit of local politics gets in the way and they miss that 3-month window? Why can't they have a 6-month window? If you're going to legislate, you don't.
Well, if they're 2 days late, we're not going to stop the reform process because someone missed a 2-day deadline or anything like that. You've got to set a window. The window is 3 months. We want to make decisions this side of the election. We think it's important to keep the momentum up. And as Simon says, it does also sink into resource management reform and the other thing that everyone has paid no attention to, but is very important, which is the work we're doing, Simon and I are doing, on development levies and fundamentally reforming the infrastructure funding and financing system for councils. I mean, quite fundamental transformational change is coming to set New Zealand up for success in the 2030s. A lot of that is local government reform, RMA reform, and infrastructure funding and financing reform, designed to make it easier to build housing and the infrastructure that New Zealand needs into the 2030s, because the status quo is not an option.
Just on that, Minister, can you explain what will happen to areas that can't agree on a proposal between them, or that submit a proposal that isn't accepted? What will the government do?
Yeah, sure.
Well, in effect, the agency will review them against the criteria that I've outlined. If they don't meet that criteria sufficiently, then in effect they won't be put forward to ministers for consideration. That'll be a conversation between the entities and the agency. Don't forget, we've already been through these type of processes with local water done well. There is a very good capability and understanding within local government now of how to put together plans and work with agencies to set up a future state. And so actually a lot of the confidence and capability that we've been able to grow through local water done well is part of the impetus behind this demand. The consultation's really clear. Councils want to get on with this process, and they don't want to wait for too long. They want certainty, and the proposal around the Head Start pathway delivers that.
Is the government imposing the structure it wants if the area isn't able to come to
Yes. The short answer is yes, and it will look something like the Combined Territories Board proposal that we put out at the back end of last year. So it will be some form of a combined entity, which may or may not include Crown Commissioners, will certainly involve the mayors of a particular region, potentially a bit horses for courses. Sort of a bit depends on what comes forward through Head Start and what's left. But that is the intention, and we will flesh that out in 2027. But the take-home point for councils is you have an opportunity, there is a window of time to shape the future of your region. My advice is take it, otherwise the government will do it for you.
Brent.
How much instance or reference to local voice having, just going back to your reference to the 1989 reforms, if you look back then, local government election turnouts had fallen ever since.
Yep.
Our biggest council, Auckland, had, I think, the lowest turnout how are you going to try and balance it that you keep, voters,
Yeah, well, there's lots of ways. It's a really good point, and there's lots of ways to give effect to local community voice, and we will expect proposals to do that. I mean, some of them exist in the status quo now, whether it's things like community boards, for example, or local boards in the case of Auckland. So that there's lots of different ways within a a larger, more combined unitary authority. There are lots of ways to make sure that the voices of local residents are given effect to at the right level, and so it will depend. Every region is different, and they will have the ability to shape that.
Are you concerned that these changes won't be enacted by referendum for local government?
Well, the history demonstrates that the Local Government Commission process, which is in law right now, has not delivered changes. It's incredibly time-consuming, incredibly cumbersome, very expensive, and hasn't actually produced anything.
But they're quite significant changes for communities, so would it be fair to say that they should get a voting voice on it, voting voice without it?
Well, people will be able to make their assessment as to what their local mayors and councils are doing, and in the same way they'll be able to make their assessment as to how the government's tracking as well.
Under the backstop,
Do you really have a mandate for those backstops? You did not go to the last election of this policy, and you're saying that there might not be referendums for these amalgamations. You're forcing councils to amalgamate. Now, obviously, there are ones who might come to you with plans to do it anyway. They're all elected, they've got their own mandate. Do you have a mandate for this policy?
I believe the proposal we're announcing today enjoys broad support, and it is government policy that has been through Cabinet that we are getting on with, because it is integral and critical to a wide range of other government priorities that we're giving effect to, not the least of which is RMA reform.
But not only that.
We didn't campaign on local government reform. That doesn't mean the government can't do it.
But you did campaign on localism.
Yes, and localism is part of that, absolutely.
Just one Sophie's question earlier about when you've got disputes. If you had, from my understanding of the reading, if a proposal was accepted by a majority and you've got an unhappy minority, would
yes.
they have to then concede?
Well, the criteria is laid out in the document. You can see it. So proposals have to be submitted by 2 or more territorial authorities that together represent a majority of either directly affected authorities or a majority of the population across directly affected districts. And there's a range of examples that demonstrate how that works. Not everyone will support local government reform. There is going to be opposition to this. I fully accept that. In the same way that not everybody supports the government of the day in the parliament, and not everybody supports mayors who get elected. I mean, that's democracy. But my honest view is that there is quite broad support for the idea and the proposition that we can't go on the way we're going in local government.
And can you quantify that? How many mayors or councils have come to you and said, we want this?
Well, through the consultation processes Minister Bishop's outlined, we had 1,100 or so submissions, which included councils across the board. The conversations that we've had to date have been very clear from a number of councils as we just want to get on with it, and we're creating the pathway to do that. So, there's differing degrees of where councils are at in terms of having their plans prepared and their heads in the right space in that regard. But we're creating a pathway. It's a voluntary pathway.
It's voluntary.
And so we'll see what happens.
It's also not binary. So a lot of people will say, well, we're up for change as long as this happens and this happens and this happens, or we're up for change if that happens. And it'd be quite good if we could explore this. It's like, well, okay, great. Like we're now giving you the opportunity to work with your mates next door to shape that. And so it's not binary. It's not like people are like, well, yes, I'm in favour of change. It's always, well, yes, except for, or yes, but, or yes, if, etc.
You're saying to them if they don't do it,
an idea of people that will be going to the backstop? Like, do you have an idea of councils that are going to be less likely to take the head start and go more to the backstop? Like, how big is that portion?
I suggest you go and talk to some of the local councils and see what they have to say about it. I really don't want to speak for them. We've sort of given you I've given you a bit of a laundry list of some of the councils that have started processes in some way, shape, or form. But I don't want to get ahead of them and say that a particular region's in favour of something, because I don't want to misquote them. And that's the most surefire way to annoy mayors is misquote them. So I don't want to do that.
But some councils indicated that they might fight back against this proposal.
I don't know.
I haven't had any conversations that reflect that feedback. I mean, the devil's always in the detail in regards to that. We've learnt through Local Water Done Well that if we work with councils, not against them, then we can actually achieve some pretty significant reform. And so we're going to continue that pathway.
Through the backstop, will you force amalgamate district councils?
Possibly.
Possibly.
You've said that you want to leave it to regions to choose their own destiny, and you've acknowledged that in the consultation, a lot of submitters had concerns about council capacity to make these sorts of changes. But now you're saying, lead your reform, you have 3 months, and otherwise we're doing it for you. How do you marry those things together?
Well, it's a carrot and stick, right? I mean, we are up for change, and we want change. Is why we put the proposals out in the first place. It's actually in some ways, it's a retreat from where we were in November, which was, here's what's happening, deal with it. It's in some ways we're now saying, okay, we've been it's been refreshing. We put that out there, and I expected kind of all hell to break loose and everyone to go bananas. And actually, what's happened is the opposite. Is people have gone, oh, fantastic, good. You guys are up for change. So are we. And they just started getting on with it. It's been really refreshing. And so we've retreated a bit from that and said, okay, great, you've got your window of time now, but change is coming. The planning reform changes we're implementing, and they're happening. They are happening, and councils have got a variety of mixed views about that too, but I would say broadly they're in favour of most of it. So, you know, the planning changes are happening anyway. We just think there is total logic in lining up the structure changes to local government alongside the planning changes, so you get proper spatial planning done at a regional level, and all the other things that planning reform will do.
With the planning changes, are you obviously probably not going to announce how you're going to fund the extra funding mechanisms for local government today, but like, are you planning that these will be put in place, and alongside that,
yes,
you'll be able to do these levies?
Yes, yes. So, keeping it simple, the planning reforms are going to significantly reduce the cost imposition on local councils in a number of ways. One is simply decluttering the system, the consents out of the system. So the RMA reforms, the planning reforms we're doing will significantly reduce down the number of permits and consents required. So that means fewer staff and fewer systems in order to process those consents. And we've published some data around that. And then the other thing from a central government point of view is we are making and will make quite a significant investment in the digital back end of the system, which again will reduce costs for councils. So at the moment they all run 78 different mapping software, 78 different maps, 78 different types of IT systems. We are essentially building a digital back end that councils they'll be required to port into it, but it's significantly in their interest to do that, because central government is going to pick up the cost of that, and then that will mean that the mapping and all of the planning is significantly easier. And that's also, and again, this hasn't had a lot of attention, but it's very important, the national flood map that Simon's leading as his climate change work. For the first time, we will have a national map of natural hazards and flood-prone areas in one nationally accessible portal by everybody. You know, these are transformational changes. Now, they're not easy, by the way, and they're quite expensive, and they're not going to happen tomorrow. But over the next 2 to 3, 4 years, you know, the landscape around how we do planning in this country and infrastructure and housing investment is going to change. And I haven't even covered the development levy work, which is going to better allow councils to recover the costs of growth-related infrastructure.
Like on that, so will these essentially new councils, will they have more financial power than just taking rates, essentially, which is kind of what...
Well, they don't just have rates at the moment. They have financial contributions and they have development contributions.
But mainly rates.
Yeah, well, that's true, but we're moving towards a system where development levies are I would describe it as a more flexible funding and financing system for growth-related infrastructure to reflect a more flexible planning system. And where our aim is to have the development levy legislation in the House in the next couple of months or so. We've had 2 rounds of consultation on that, because the devil really is in the detail. If you think this is complicated, wait until you see growth-related infrastructure charging costs. So the devil's in the detail on that. We had 2 rounds of consultation on it, including with councils and developers. And we've also announced, and again didn't get a lot of attention, we've also announced that the Commerce Commission will be the regulator of that new system, because you know, essentially you're dealing with monopolistic providers, and we've got to get the pricing right, and that's the role of the Comcom. Not about this.
And your coalition partners, though, both of them completely on board.
This is a cabinet government decision.
Are you still deciding whether the government will have the power to force amalgamate district councils, and that will be reflected when you put the legislation through, or is that a definite that you're saying you will have that power?
We're still working on the details of what the backstop looks like, and we'll have more to say about that next year. But it will look something like the Combined Territories proposal that we published in November, which is focusing on mayors, focusing on region-wide governance, and put it this way, regional councillors will not be elected at the 2028 local body elections.
Further to the funding question, Infrastructure New Zealand's just put out a statement. They say infrastructural reform alone will not be enough. You cannot expect better performance from local government without giving it the tools to exceed. Yeah,
well, that's what we're doing. I mean, like that is true, but that is precisely what the other stuff I've just been talking about. So these things fit together, right? But you've basically got four stools of a chair, okay? You've got RMA reform, that's the most important pillar, that underpins everything. Then you've got the structural changes, which we're announcing today, which is simplifying the structure of local government. Then you've got the development levy work, which we're doing, and also Infrastructure Funding and Financing Act changes, which the bill is before Parliament right now. Again, kind of gone below the radar, but it's actually extremely important in allowing councils to better recover, or allowing actually infrastructure costs to be off council balance sheets and for more greenfields housing growth, but also for public transport and new state highways, for example, making sure that there's a closer nexus between the beneficiaries of growth and the people who pay for that growth. So again, boring, no one really understands it, but extremely important. Let me just finish the point. And then the fourth stool of the chair is the new Ministry of Cities, Environment, Regions and Transport, which is making sure that as local government goes through all of this change, central government is a better partner to local government within that. It drives local government bananas that they have to deal with all of these different government departments, all of which are largely dealing with the similar public policy problems. That's why we've created MCERT, Cities, Environment, Regions and Transport, because central government's got to be a better partner for all of this. So when you put all those four things together, I think it's actually an attractive and compelling package to set New Zealand up for success. So Infrastructure New Zealand is right, but we are working on those new tools. In fact, there is legislation about to come for those new tools.
Will they be convinced when that legislation comes?
Well, they've been involved in the discussions around it.
We keep hearing the same thing from them, from other groups as well in the sector. Why aren't they convinced?
Well, I just think it's a refrain that's easy to roll out, but actually we are doing it right now. We're about to introduce legislation around it.
Will all those changes be based on levies? However, will be based on new development or existing rate space? You're not going to do anything on GST, you're not doing anything on BNI levies.
We have a coalition commitment to look at incentives for new housing, which we're continuing to work away on. That's when we talk about our going for housing growth policy. That's always been pillar 3. Pillar 1 is planning reforms. Pillar 2 is the infrastructure changes we just talked about. Pillar 3 is incentives, and we're working away on that.
Have you given any thought to how this proposal will attract the better regional boundaries bill proposed by Tim? You obviously don't support this. You like them as a national party.
Not in great detail. I think his thing is more. I'm not an expert on it. I think isn't it more about like the boundaries for MSD officers and
it's
KO
related
and
to
stuff?
different agencies, police boundaries, health boundaries. It's agency boundaries.
Well, it may need an update based on this. We'll wait and see.
Part of the feedback was the importance of community consultation, communities locally, that kind of thing as we go through this, especially for councils that can't meet the 3-month time frame. Is there going to be any opportunity?
They can meet the 3-month time frame. Honestly, local government spends its life consulting people. They can go and meet the 3-month timeline. They honestly.
Assuming they can't.
They can.
Councils that can't.
They can.
Will there be any consultation undertaken, or will they just be given the government solution?
They can meet the time frame. 3 months is more than enough time.
Are you giving the major metro mayors a heads up on this policy announcement, or is this the first time you're hearing of it now?
No, they've had a heads up. We've had a phone call with a number of them.
And what was the
We've been kind of workshopping this a bit.
Oh, look, I don't. Broadly positive, but I don't get into the detail of conversations I have. No,
Not every mayor in the country will have heard about it, but quite a few have, and as have quite a few other people, to be honest. We've been kind of workshopping this a bit for for a decent length of time.
Do you expect there to
I talked to Tuku Morgan this morning, and I don't want to speak for him, but as a mark of respect, I rang him to run through it. Obviously, the Crown has a treaty settlement with Waikato Tainui, and in fact, the treaty settlement obliges the Crown to engage with Tainui in relation to things like this. So I gave him a call. It was a very respectful conversation. I don't want to speak for him.
Been in touch with Justin as well from Ngāi Tahu, so again, it's consistent there.
Again, not every iwi in the country will have heard about this. That many will be finding out about it for the first time. So I don't want to overdo the consultation. That you got to keep some things secret.
You section in here about the SGEs.
Yes.
The report last year about some of the troubles Crown was having with meeting their obligations, including making some PSGs go to court.
Yes.
Do you see this change or this reform having a positive impact or complicating it further?
I think it will lead to a series of robust conversations in the same way that RMA reform is as well. But the key point is that all of those conversations are respectful, and we have a coalition commitment, in fact a government commitment, to protect and uphold treaty settlements, and there will be a range of treaty settlements that will need to be given effect to as part of these reforms, and we'll be looking at those because the Crown has signed legal agreements to give effect to a range of, in some cases, quite complicated governing arrangements, particularly when it comes to natural resources, for example, and I'm dealing with that through RMA reform right now.
For the backstop, I know it's still being developed, but do you envision the Minister for Local Government being the decider there, or would you appoint some kind of commissioner who could make a call that was a little bit less political?
We've actually worked that out. It'll probably end up in the Cabinet.
Cabinet will take decisions in regards to that in the early part of next year. We haven't reached a definitive solution around that. We're pretty open-minded around how that works. We also got a lot of feedback through the consultation process in terms of the specific details of what we tabled previously, so we're going to take on board some of that thinking as well. First and foremost, right here, right now, we're focused on getting proposals in under the Head Start pathway. That's a priority because we want to support those that are ready to go now and get on with it, and then we'll work through the rest of it in due course.
Amalgamation to water services through this as well?
The reality is that there are a number of groupings that have signalled that they are potentially looking to do further consolidation. And some have already formed, committees and groupings to do that. Rotorua would be a good example of that. They have the intent to combine next year. Our plan is always to work with them to get that. Greater amalgamation, greater consolidation means, less cost, less bureaucracy, and that's what ratepayers are calling for. So, we support them to do that.
What about the ones that decided to stay in-house? Do you think those might be the councils that wouldn't be so open to this amalgamation?
No, I don't think you can draw a conclusion around that. It's really, the point here is making sure that the plans meet local requirements and it's not one size fits all. And I think that's the best thing about the local water done well proposal. We have seen significant amalgamation consolidation, but with plans that are customised to the local region and the local community and maintain that local ownership. And again, now we're just saying, okay, we've done that for water, let's apply that to other aspects of local government and put it under a regulated model as well, because these are monopolies. They can charge what they like for rates, and we have to protect ratepayers in regards to that relationship, and that's what we're doing.
What about assets like ports and Christchurch has a large, Crown-owned companies particularly when you get to the backstop aspect, how does that get settled?
Well, we're going to work through the detail of some of that in 2027, and we would expect some of these issues to be worked through in the councils and their proposals. So let's wait and see. I mean, again, it's a bit horses for courses. Different councils own different things. We are interested as to see what people decide to do at a transport level. One of the things that kind of got missed at the end of last year was we did a bit of a rapid review of regional council functions, and it may be that we see some sort of joint transport bodies come forward as part of this. I don't think anyone's... Yeah, potentially. I don't think anyone's wildly satisfied with the state of transport planning and transport kind of governance locally. This is getting a bit outside where we're at, but it's a cumbersome process at the moment through 3-year regional land transport plans, and you've got a series of committees which make bids, and it's not a perfect process. So we're very interested in changes there.
Minister, just on transport, there's a report out today from the Motor Trade Association forecasting that New Zealand's vehicle fleet will increase to more than 5 million vehicles. How's the government preparing for roading infrastructure in terms of that increase?
Well, I haven't seen that report, but I have seen a potted summary of it, and we've got 4 million vehicles on the roads now, and the numbers will grow as the population grows, which I think is obvious. I mean, the government's perspective on these issues is, in our cities, we need better public transport, and in Auckland and Wellington, for example, we're very focused on that, and we need good quality highways in our regions to connect goods to market and make it easier for people to get around the regions. We have significant funding challenges in transport, which I've been pretty upfront about. But as the population grows, there'll be more cars on the roads, and we need to make sure we have an environment that's conducive to that.
It's also projecting a big increase in the electric vehicle fleet. Does National have plans to deliver more than 10,000 extra charges beyond 2030?
Well, getting to 10,000 by 2030 is going to be a stretch. So let's wait and see. I mean, I was really proud of the announcement we made the other day. 2,500 additional EV chargers. I was actually with Janusha from ChargeNet this morning visiting a play centre where they've got a charger in. It's not a real one. It's a fake one. But it's an old charger that they put in, and the kids are learning about, they've got the little bikes as they go around the play centre and learning about electricity charging and how you can charge up cars, which I think is fantastic. So that one is not counted as part of the 2,500, by the way. It's an additional side thing. So I'm really proud about that. But and we'll do more as we can do. I mean, it's by 2030, so it's a while away.
Minister, on your new role as Attorney General, have you had any requests to undertake any prosecutions under Section 131 of the Human Rights Act? That's the racial disharmony one. There's obviously been
It's only been a month, Henry.
It's only been a month. There's been a lot of conversation about the Indian FTA, which is straight into racial disharmony and police.
I haven't. No. I haven't. No. No.
And the asset recycling, are you going to encourage that at all through either this or other work you've got going on?
No, those are questions for councils. Through the Auckland deal, there's a brief mention of the Crown considering some contributions alongside Auckland if they choose to do asset recycling, for example. But it's not really part of this. No.
Minister,
Maybe take one more.
Ron's
Yes.
reprioritisation.
Yes.
Are you planning to announce that prior to the budget?
Well, you'll have to wait and see.
And also, just on this, I will sing this in. Have you got any support from Labor on these changes? Obviously,
We haven't talked to the Labor Party about it.
Why not?
Because we're the government and they're not. I mean, like,
So that might change in November.
well, it might do. Well, they'll be over to them. I mean, it's over to them to have some policy. There could be policy number 3. I mean, I think we're up to 2 so far. The first 2 were pretty crap. So let's wait and see if they want to adopt this as their 3rd policy. It's all ears. It'll be their first decent policy so far. So far, they've got nothing. They're taking the public for mugs. I mean, here we are 6 months out from the election. By this stage in 2023, we had announced vast swathe of policies that we put before the New Zealand people at the election later in 2023. So far, they are offering us 8 pages of basically guff and nonsense, which is the Future Fund, which they still can't explain how it will work, and a Clayton's capital gains tax, which they say will heroically both pay down the debt that's been built up by them, by the way, and also offer 3 free GP visits, which no one thinks will actually be the reality. That's literally the sum total of their policy offering for the New Zealand people so far. And here we are in May, early May, with an election in 6 months or so, with the campaign to start in 5 months or so, and they're offering nothing. And this excuse that they have to wait for the budget is nonsense. It's facile nonsense. But not everything is about government spending. They could announce policies on all sorts of things, and they have chosen not to. They are taking the public for mugs and playing the public for fools.
We're going to take that off. Should we finish there?
I think we might finish there. I've probably gone a bit too hard.
Thanks, everyone.